Catching up with Sarah and Ginny, fueled by laughter and insights aplenty. Curiosity, connection, and learning that sticks. Real talk, real lives with practical tips. Welcome to Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny. Come on in.
Hello and welcome to Catching with Sarah and Ginny. And without further ado, Sarah, have you got a wow for us? I mean, have you got a wow for us? Of course you've got a wow for us. Tell us what it is.
Always got a wow for you, Ginny. Great to see you. And it's really good to kind of have this chance again to think about, right, what were my wow moments from last week? And I think one of the things that's been really important has been some of the research stuff that's been coming out over the past few weeks, some of the policies, but also some of the kind of research which is being informed about what's happening, particularly in terms of the teaching of reading. I've been doing some work with the National Literacy Trust and so privileged to even have been asked. But they've just published one of their first papers around what's the future of literacy going to be like, or what's it going to look like. And it's just really exciting for me because it's talking about actually, the kind of the first paper is all around multimodal reading, which, as you know, and on these podcasts, I talk huge amounts around inclusive reading, inclusive literacy, and actually what that looks like and what that means. So it was really exciting to read the kind of first paper that talks about the future of literacy being, we need to look at it as how our learners are accessing print, how our learners are accessing written material, and to ensure that the definitions that we're using in our schools, using in our curriculums, reflect some of the shifts in the way that our learners are accessing print. I mean, how many households now have newspapers delivered? How many kind of, comics magazines that had kind of seen quite a decline, whereas actually what has been seen through this research and through some of these findings is around like graphic novels, comics. I've seen a bit of a resurgence, but actually one of the biggest things which has been found is that young people are accessing print kind of quite a big number, and their song lyrics. And actually, if we think about YouTube, we think about, I think about my own kind of past and youth and smash hits. I would love, gone with the days before you could just quickly type in a song, not only get the video for it, but you can also get all the lyrics for it. Before we used to have to wait and get it in the Smash Hits magazine, and then we could sit down and follow the words to our favourite songs. And so now in terms of when the subtitles come up or when the things come up with the songs that, we're listening to them, that's how our young people are accessing print. That's how our young people are actually being motivated to want to find out what the words mean. So it was a real wow moment for me because it really aligns with the stuff that I've been talking for a long time. It's also really supporting a lot of the stuff that, a lot of the things that came out from my PhD, 16 years ago, looking at giving our learners multimodal ways in to, and at that point we were talking about phonics and we were talking about kind of some of the good practice stuff within the teaching of reading. So that was a real wow moment. And I think it kind of gave me a bit of a surge in terms of, yes, there's now research as well as my research that really supports this understanding about this digital reading, not replacing books, but being part of the world of books. So it's embracing it all.
It's really interesting because I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues yesterday about supporting children who want to enjoy books, but potentially they want to have access to books that they potentially can't read. And we had a great discussion about things like, the magic pen, as it was referred to by the child, about then a child can access text themselves without being reliant on an adult to read it for them. When we were at the Schools and Academies show, there were a lot of ways that individuals can listen to books kind of on devices by attaching the the pretendy book to it, and having
Yeah.
the headphone. But it's this idea of access for all as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's so important. And what I actually love is they seem to have, it's coming back what we've thought, Sarah, isn't it? It's about
Yes.
widening the breadth,
Yeah.
not narrowing, which I think it's just heartening, isn't it?
And it was, I mean, we saw some wonderful things, the Vox block, which was basically,
Yeah.
I said, oh my goodness, it makes me think of a tape. And the guy
Yeah.
said that was the idea behind the creation of this product. Amazing. You know, you want to feel it, you want to touch it. It was like a book, and you could
Yeah.
use it to kind of, have that audio version of the story. And you've got Calibri, you've got listening books, you've got RNIB, you've got Audible, you've got all of those ways in to hearing books and stories.
Yeah.
And again, that was also slightly over the year. It's been a bit seen as maybe not quite reading. Oh yes, you might have done that, but that you haven't read the book. And I always say in my training, the last book that I read was one of the Cormoran Strike books, and I couldn't read it as in the printed book. I listened to it because the book was so big, and
Yeah.
actually it intimidated me. So again, it's that having those opportunities to access things via a Kindle or via an e-reader.
Yeah.
But it's also having those things just built in as the offer, and it not
Yeah.
being, you have to have the book in this way. And I know, and this is actually, I think one of my blogs is going to be on this. One of the big things around the multimodal reading is that point that, as you were saying there, the learner wants to get access to a book that they couldn't sit and read necessarily themselves in the traditional way, but they might not know that they're going to actually like that book. So actually, if we're thinking about reading for pleasure, we need to give children tasters of different kinds of books so they can make a choice. That sounds interesting. Oh, I quite like that character or that scene that's in that story. And we've
Yeah.
talked, and I know that's when you were talking to your colleague, we were talking about, making songs about the characters,
Yeah.
and you've got the wonderful AI generated things that you can use now within their programs, that you can make raps, you can make songs, but you can give a flavor to a scene from a book. You can give a flavor to a character from a book. I use the book Holes to create songs and really lovely visuals as well that they can kind of just home in on. And that visual could be what the visual that's used for them to make a choice, whether that's the thing they'd like to listen to. They could have the visual, they could have the QR code on the back with a bit of song about the story, or a powerful spoken word or rap with the first bit of the opening of the story, which makes them go, oh, I want to hear more from this, or I don't think it's my kind of book.
Yeah.
If you had
Yeah.
Holes and Alice in Wonderland, how would they know necessarily, apart from the fact that one might have a girl on the front cover and one might have a boy? But actually, they might like Alice in Wonderland because of all the mystery and the magical creatures that are met. So,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a real wow around that.
It's like a resurgence, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just great. And I know the wonderful Howell Roberts.
Yeah.
He's very excited about how drama is being re-acknowledged. It's this resurgence that I
Yeah.
think is very exciting. Brilliant,
And
brilliant.
bringing things to life, bringing that print to life, and I think that's great. And I think the work of Hal, the work of all of those wonderful people, the storytellers.
Yes.
We've been talking about it for a long time, but what's happened now is you've got some research that shows
Yes.
that it is beneficial.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it does make a
Absolutely.
difference.
Absolutely brilliant. I'm going to recommend a song. I'm going to recommend a song. Oh, it's like I was going to sing it.
Well,
I'm going to recommend. I've got two in my mind. I'm going to recommend "Beautiful Things" by Benson Boone. The
I love it.
lyrics, for a while I was doing fine, and then "I Want You, I Need
Yeah.
You." Just this idea of we
Yeah.
do all need each other, be it children,
Yeah.
staff, Senkos, head teachers. We all,
Yeah.
and then it says, don't take these beautiful things kind of don't take those things away. And I think it comes back to this humanness in education. You know, as the wonderful Ken Robinson said, we can end up on a treadmill, but actually, let's find those beautiful things every day to kind of just finding the great things that are happening in school, and actually finding out about the individuals who we're with in schools.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. I think that's, and it's one of my favorites actually. I love that song. A nice addition to the Spotify list as well.
Yes.
Um,
Yes,
and and I think from that, Ginny, can I talk about a book?
of course.
Because actually, just thinking around that, that just made me. It kind of linked quite nicely with the book that I've selected as well, because all of this, what I think it's kind of helping us to do is to link that theory and practice together. So I think, the wow moment of, we now know and we now are aware of the impact that these multimodal ways in to accessing literacy have for our young people. We've got some great kind of song choices there that you were talking about in terms of these beautiful things. And this is kind of, and I think it's a beautiful book. That's what made me think as well. The book is My Brain is a Home, by Orlando Betterson. And it's she does a series of books. She's an Australian, I think, teacher and occupational therapist, but she, oh, look, it says in the back actually, she's no teacher and a parent. And she just talks about and helps young people to understand how their brains work. And I think we've got a lot of these books around, and I really liked this. Had a slightly different slant to some of it. It talks about different kinds of brains. It talks about the way that we talk about different kind of brains. But I think with this one, so I have got this one and I've got the other one. I may have talked about the other one, My Different Brain, on a previous podcast. But I think what they do, which is really nice again, is about getting our learners to understand how these multimodal ways in, or all of these things, how they affect our brain, which changes how we feel, which then changes how we learn. And I think anything that helps to make what's happening internally kind of visual, and bring it externally, so we can see and understand ourselves, will really support within the classroom. So I really like that the book offers the learners that chance to step inside their brain and just to think about why things happen in a certain way. And I like it because it's got a guard dog that barks too frequently, basically. And it's the amygdala, and what it's saying is that, unfortunately, the dog, it actually barks when things aren't so bad, when problems aren't so bad, and it gets activated. And it's just saying that that this young person's teaching the amygdala to only bark when the problem is a 3 or above on the scale. So you get to understand, what things are actually a threat, because a lot of what's happening currently is about teaching our young people and our learners actually about how to feel safe. And we can't just say we've created a safe classroom, so it's safe, so you should feel safe. We don't know what safety is for that young person. We don't know, what those beautiful things are that help them to enjoy and be aware, and see the fun and the love for learning. And so we've got to actually really, just again and again, it's that modeling, it's that overlearning, it's that making things as explicit as possible, but just really talking about, actually, our brains might respond really quickly to certain things because we don't feel safe. And that's a lot to do what's happened to us maybe in the past, or also with differences that our brain has just in the way that it's developed. And so it's just making it really clear. So I like that one. There you go. Long-winded way to say it's a good book.
I love that. The book I've chosen is a book that came out, and I think it was on one of my many visits to Waterstones. Other bookshops are available. And it
Absolutely.
was one on the middle table, and they just always suck me in. And it was Philip Reeve, Mortal Engines. And I took myself
Nice.
out of my comfort zone for this because it isn't a book that I would normally be drawn towards. And I put myself in the place of some children in my class and thought, if I'm recommending books, I have to be very
Yeah,
aware of the fact that I can go down a rabbit hole of books that
yeah,
I like. So I'm
yeah,
going to go to a book that I wouldn't naturally go to and read it.
right.
And I
Brilliant.
absolutely loved it, and I loved the images it brought out in my mind, and then I was gushing to the children, and I've probably said this before,
Brilliant.
I used to have a very narrow shelf in my classroom so that the books were all facing outwards, and it would be
Nice.
my recommended
Good.
book, but it was from the heart, because I do worry sometimes these get put on a door and it's Mrs. Bootman's recommended book, and if you're not careful,
Yeah,
it hasn't changed for a year because everyone's so
yeah.
busy. But I'd have a recommended book. My TAs would as well. My job share would. So that and
Brilliant.
the conversations I had about this book were absolutely amazing. But then I have to say, my I was dashed, Sarah, dashed
Dashed. Ooh.
when I watched film. Because
Ah,
it wasn't the story in my mind. When I watched the film, I was like,
right. Yep,
"No, that isn't right," and I'm really off on one, but I find it very, I'm gonna say, irritating when I read a book and then I watch
yeah,
the film and my poor husband, I will pause it and go, "Can I just say that isn't
that's
actually
right.
right because that isn't how it was in the book." So, it was, I mean, that's another story, but it was really interesting. I
Yeah,
went out of my comfort zone. I read this one and I read Tin,
right.
by
Yep,
yeah, which once again, not my genre, wasn't my genre, Sarah. But now
but
is
now
my
it
genre.
is.
So,
Wow.
we ask children sometimes to read a book that
Yeah,
is not within their normal remit. So actually we should model that, and we can say, and I think I said to the children, "Do you know what? This isn't my normal genre,
isn't
but,
it?
I've decided
Yep,
I'm gonna read it so that I can talk to
about it.
people who I know will enjoy it." So it really broadened my, I don't know, my viewpoint of different books. So that's why I've chosen it. I absolutely loved it, Sarah.
And you know as well with that, I love that whole concept. It's again, it's that modeling of like we do ask children to read stuff, or we do we do share the class book, which we assume that everyone's going to have a joy around, which actually they don't, and it's giving them that understanding about the rights of a reader. You know that actually you might not enjoy this, or this might
Mm.
not be something, but give it a try, give it a go. Let's have a listen, and to have that understanding around that. So no, absolutely brilliant. No, brilliant. Brilliant choice. And you also made me think a little bit around one of the things you were saying about film. It's quite interesting because some of the National Literacy Trust work is talking about how children are accessing a lot of stories or things through film and video,
Yeah.
and then I don't know, do you still say video? Yeah, video, and
Oh,
then are choosing to read or to listen to the book afterwards. And actually, that's a really good point as well. That I know that sometimes they'll see a film and then they might listen to the audiobook.
right.
And actually, it's really important to harness and encourage those conversations around now that you've heard or you've listened to or you've read the book and you saw the film, what kind of differences
Yeah.
around the things that you thought
Yeah.
that might be or how
Yeah.
you thought that character would look.
Yeah.
Is that what you thought Hogwarts would look like? I always
Yeah.
go back to Harry Potter. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, very good. I like that.
And just before we finish, I also think it's really important, and I've done this before, books that I know and that I love. I read the beginning, the
Mhm.
first few pages or the first
Yeah.
chapter to the whole class.
Yeah,
Because you
yeah.
made a really
Good.
good point earlier. Actually, a front cover of the book is
Mhm.
very one-dimensional and can
Yeah,
switch some children off on, switch some children off.
instantly.
I often read the blurb at the back, or I'll say, "I'm gonna read this this beginning of this book to you." And if it appeals to
Yeah,
you, then actually here it is. And I've had to
yeah,
actually buy multiple copies of some books because children have been so desperate to read the book that I've just gone
yeah.
and bought copies. Wow.
Yeah.
Now that is empowering, Sarah, because then I can have 3
Yeah.
or 4 children all
Yeah.
reading the same book, and then I can talk to them and we can have a group
Yeah.
discussion about a book, and that brings the book to life. But this idea of reading the first part of a variety of books
Yeah.
really seems to work, because actually I've been told to get a book from the bookcase. That, whereas
And yeah. And actually, if you could, from the bookcase, I mean, the other thing I really am sort of looking at developing and supporting within schools is having, so, and I love a QR code, but it doesn't have to be a QR code. It can be a button that they press with it, or some headphones, or, I mean, there's going to be so many more ways that we can access this information soon. But you have a few little recordings or a few little songs of the beginning bits of a few different books that you've got on your bookcase. So children could go and have a little listen, or even just you reading that first chapter. When you read it to the class, actually recording yourself, QR
yes,
coding it and putting it in there. So, and you don't have to have an iPad. You don't have to have you can just have a tablet, a very simple, very little that they hold it over, they scan it, and it could just even open the audio file. It doesn't have to be video, doesn't have to be visual. You can just have that opportunity to hear. And then you've suddenly got into that thing of they're making choices. And then you get to give them ask them to do a bit of a review about, well, why did you choose that book? Why didn't you choose this book? Because the big thing around the covers is that's one person's interpretation of what bits of that story do they think are going to get someone want to pick that book up.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
That's just not the bit that you might notice. That might not be the seagulls.
No.
And that might
Huh,
not be the bit
might
that's
not be
most
the
relevant.
sequel. Another thing is, I've had children who've read a book and really enjoyed it. They put a
Yeah.
sticky note on the front,
Great.
ask
Recommend.
Lily about this book. And then it's on
Yeah,
there.
great.
And actually, from
Great.
a class teacher's point of view, I
Nice.
go, oh, go and ask Lily about the book. Lily has a conversation with her friend about that book.
The book that she's
It
read.
does actually free up the teacher, but also that's
Yeah.
a peer-to-peer conversation about that book. Go and speak to Lily, and then you can decide if you want to read that book. And they'll go, yes, I do. Or I've spoken to Lily about it. Actually, it's not
I'm
for
all right,
me.
thanks.
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. I'm all right, thanks.
All right.
But
It's scary. I love that, Ginny. I love that idea. I'm going to get some. I'm going to get some stickers to model that on some of my training, because that's a really lovely thing. Because again, it's that feedback about books, and actually reviewing books and being able to talk about the books. But actually, it doesn't have to be something that's on a bit of paper or stored somewhere as there's the output from this activity that we've done. This is something that grows, gets deeper. Loads of people might ask Lily about the book, and then actually she's got to kind of consider sometimes, what could I tell this person that they're going to actually want to read it? But actually, I know if I tell this person, if I tell Martin, that's not going to be the same. They're going to want to know this bit about the book.
About
So
your
again,
audience.
you're getting into all sorts of rich conversations.
Yeah.
I love that, Ginny.
Great. It's the gift that keeps giving. The other thing is, the
Yes.
other day I lent somebody a book. Or was there a photograph I sent someone of a book that belongs to me? And they said, oh, thanks for the book recommendation. I love your sticker on the outside. Now, do you do this, Sarah? I have stickers that say Mrs. Bootman that are stuck on the front of books that belong to me.
Oh,
They are
okay.
on the front of the book. So as anybody who borrows that book, it is blatantly obvious in a kind of blatant way that book
Yeah.
belongs to me. I don't
Well,
put it on the inside of the book, Sarah, because it can get lost in anybody's bookcase. Stickers, and then
on the
I can
edge.
just chop off Mrs. and we can stick
Love
the
that.
Bootman sticker on umbrellas or goodness knows
Yeah.
what.
Anyway,
Yeah.
honestly, Ginny, I'm from somebody that's borrowed one of your umbrellas. I think that's fabulous. Yeah, I'm loving that. I'm going to get some stickers. That's just another great tip.
Well,
Wonderful.
we're here to share kind of things that make our life easier and things that we've used that work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Sarah, it's been a joy as always. Thank you so much. You go back to your seagulls.
Right. I will. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will do.
And
I'll
as
continue not to notice them.
No, you will. I hope you do. Go out.
I will.
and
I'm going to.
Notice the
Embrace the seagulls.
Notice Stanley the Seagulls. Right, on that note, Sarah, it's always a pleasure.
Never a chore. Bye, Ginny.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us this time on Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny.
Always a pleasure and never a chore.
Whoa.